Ladies and gentlemen, may we please take up our seats? We're about to start. May we all please take up our seats? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Executive Mayor of Cape Town, Alderman Jordan Hill Lewis, we welcome you to the annual Remembrance Memorial Service and the Wreath laying ceremony. The functionary for the ceremony is the Executive Alderman Mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill Lewis. The arrival of the dignitary will be announced. We would like to bring the following military cultures and procedures to your attention. On arrival of the functionary and his entourage, all spectators are requested to stand and remain standing until he has been seated. When the dignitary has been seated, the peal of bells will be rung. During scripture reading and prayer, male spectators are to remove headdress following the commands of caps and on-caps given by the parade commander. All spectators are requested to stand while singing the hymns. During homage and the sounding of the national anthem, you are requested to stand and react to the commands of the parade warrant officer. And for the rendering of the last post, you are requested to stand, and all members in uniform must salute. The salute ends after the last post. Civilian gentlemen are requested to remove their headdress on the command national salute, present arms. Before the last post, one salvo will be fired, followed by the 2 minutes of silence, followed by a second salvo and the sounding of the reveille. Kindly remain standing during the homage of the last post until the end of the reveille. Warning, please be aware that the cannon salvo will be fired before and after the last post. Elderly persons and parents with young children are to be prepared to these salvos. All the wreath layers must please take note of the wreath laying procedures as laid down in the program. Members who wish to lay a private wreath or flowers will be given an opportunity to do so after the formal list, and this will be announced. Memorial Order of Thin Hats, Credo and Prayer will be read by Moth Derek Berry. On completion of the memorial service, kindly remain seated while the functionary and his entourage departs. Please remain at your seats until the ceremonial guard sentries and flag orderlies have marched off. All spectators are requested to switch off their phones and refrain from smoking for the duration of the memorial service and wreath laying ceremony. Please stand for the arrival of the moth banners. Please be seated. The members on parade are provided by the Chief Langalibale Rifles, Cape Town Highlanders, and General Jan Smart Regiment. The ceremonial gun troop are members from Nelson Mandela Artillery Regiment. The troop commander is Master Warrant Officer B. Havenga. The sentries and flag orderlies are members from various arms of service: South African Army, South African Air Force, South African Navy, and the South African Medical Health Service. The commander for this parade is Captain M. Zena, and the platoon sergeant is Staff Sergeant V. Abrams. The music is provided by the South African Army Band Western Cape under the Director of Music, Major V. Michaels. The lament will be played by Piper Warrant Officer Class 2 A. Amory from Nelson Mandela Artillery Regiment Pipe Band.
Sentries, attack men! Take post! Set! Set! Quick, march! Left, right, left! Left, right, left! Sentries and flagmen, take post! Outward, stand! National flag, unfold! Defense force flag, unfold! Flags, unfold!
Sir, is that guy part of the meeting?
No,
That guy wearing that kit?
no, it's not part of our team. I don't know who it's for.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the Executive Mayor of Cape Town, Alderman Jordan Hill Lewis. The pealing of the town bells at 11 o'clock has traditionally signaled the start of the Remembrance Day memorial service, honoring the hour at which the amnesties at the end of World War I came into effect. You may be seated. The functionary Executive Mayor of Cape Town, Alderman Jordan Hill Lewis, will now deliver his keynote address.
Brigadier General Dube, representing the Chief of the South African National Defence Force, Brigadier General Mowatse, representing South African Air Force, Rear Admiral Dlamini, representing the South African Navy, Colonel Mtambo, representing the Surgeon General, officers, warrant officers, non-commissioned officers, members of Parliament, former mayors of the city of Cape Town and deputy mayors, aldermen, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. On Friday, I had the great honor of attending a Remembrance Day service at the Red Cross Children's Hospital in Rondebosch. Many of us are aware that the hospital is a living war memorial, but it was very meaningful for me to stop and reflect on just how it came to be. South Africa entered World War II just 3 days after Britain declared war on Germany in September 1939. At the time, the South African Army numbered only 5,300 regulars, with an additional 15,000 men in the active citizen force, a reservist corps which mostly provided training to volunteers. Thousands of young men volunteered to fight, many of them teenagers. I'm not sure that any of us here can imagine what it must have been like without social media and the internet, without cell phones and video calling to speak to your family, in a world that was much more mysterious, disconnected, distant and unknowable, for 18-year-old men to board ships here in Cape Town Harbour, to sail thousands of kilometers to North Africa and Europe to fight against Nazis and fascists, knowing there was a good chance that they would never return. Over the past few days, I've really tried to imagine what it must have been like boarding a ship here in Cape Town Harbour as a mere boy, not sure if I was ever going to come back and see our magnificent mountain again. I'm not sure that we will ever know such bravery on such a scale. And indeed, I pray that we will never have to. Those men, and we have 3 of them with us today, which I will say more about later, were to witness the most brutal excesses of humanity, man's terrifying capacity for evil. They experienced all of the horror of war. Many of them were particularly affected by the terror that beset the most vulnerable members of society, children. Many thousands, tens of thousands of whom were injured, became sick or died in the violence. They saw the pain of mothers holding their lifeless children, and many young people disabled for the rest of their lives. Fortunately for all of us, many of these young men did return to Cape Town. And when they did, some of them had a vision to create a facility that would alleviate the suffering that they witnessed on the battlefields of Europe and North Africa. They decided to create a children's hospital that would look after children who were ill and infirm. Doing so, they felt, would be a meaningful way to honor those of their comrades who did not return and to make their memory live on forever. And so they donated portions of their salaries on return to the project. Their vision was made manifest in the magnificent hospital we see today, a world-class children's hospital which serves more than 250,000 children every year, the vast majority of which come from disadvantaged backgrounds across Cape Town and indeed across the world. The memory of fallen heroes is further honored by the exceptional research that is conducted at this hospital, the world-class training in pediatric clinical disciplines, as well as active outreach and support to other hospitals around the country. But what stands out for me most about this story is what it shows about the spirit and the values of the young men who stand at its center. They did not say, after returning from war, that they had done enough, that they had performed enough service for a lifetime, although this was obviously, undoubtedly true. They did not expect society or the state to give them anything. Rather, they continued to give an extraordinary lesson. They knew the importance of fighting for freedom and justice, and for doing what one can to alleviate the suffering of one's fellow man. And they knew that every one of us, each of us, has a role to play in making our world incrementally better, kinder, and fairer. Many of them went on to live lives of extraordinary service in politics, business, the public service, and through charitable organizations like the Moths and the SA Legion, many of whom join us today. But today, we have some incredible honored guests. And I would like us to especially honor 3 of these extraordinary men who are with us. We are joined by Oom Willem van Wyk, who is the oldest and only surviving member of the South African Cape Corps. At 99 years old, ladies and gentlemen. He is also the oldest surviving World War II veteran in South Africa. I am very grateful that Oom William was willing to make the journey down to Cape Town from Kimberley to be our special guest and to mark this occasion with us. Oom William joined the Union Army in July 1941 at the age of 18 as a full-time service volunteer. He sailed to North Africa, where the Corps fought on key battlegrounds, including the Siege of Tobruk and the Battle of El Alamein. He fought in North Africa for over a year before returning to South Africa. William and the Cape Corps returned to the front lines shortly thereafter, this time as part of the 6th South African Armored Division, to continue the fight against fascism in Italy. During the Battle of Monte Cassino, near Rome, William faced a harrowing ordeal as the Allies were pushed back several times and forced to garrison in a monastery. It was an intense fire battle that the Germans were winning, and William was separated from his unit. Unsure of where his comrades were, he simply joined another unit and carried on fighting. His family in Kimberley, however, were notified a few days later that he was listed as missing in action. They did not find out that he was alive until several months later. Just imagine that. William, you honor us with your presence here today. Dankie vir al wat u gedoen het om vryheid in ons wêreld te beskerm. Next, I welcome Mr. Jackson Himan. Mr. Himan is the last veteran still alive from the Indian Malay Corps and the second oldest veteran in South Africa at 98 years old. He served in a transportation unit in North Africa. Mr. Himan's presence here today is in fact a very pleasant surprise. When my office was searching high and low for the country's last living veterans to invite them today, we did not know about Mr. Himan. But on Friday, just 2 days ago, Mr. August from the Cape Corps reached out to us to say that his organization had recently discovered a veteran whose history they were still researching. Mr. Himan, I'm delighted that you were able to join us today and that the Veterans Associations are now able to record and document your history of service so that future generations can recognize your extraordinary life. I also want to recognize Mr. Walter Brewis, who has joined us this morning. Mr. Brewis is now 97 years old. Mr. Brewis joined the South African Army in June 1944 as a 19-year-old lad. After basic training, he was flown in a Douglas C-47 Skytrain, known as a Dakota, to Cairo. From there, he sailed across the Mediterranean to join the efforts in the south of Italy. The base camp for new arrivals from South African troops in Italy was in a place called Santa Barbara, a small mining town near Florence. As the young men arrived, they were greeted by disappointed-looking, battle-weary, hardened veterans who were concerned to see that these new arrivals were so young and inexperienced. But Mr. Brewer served for a year until the war ended as a lorry driver, doing the important and often grim work of cleaning up the battlefields of Italy behind the front lines, finally bringing the war to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, we have in our midst these three gentlemen who are, so far as we can ascertain to the best of our abilities, the very last three combat veterans of World War II alive in South Africa today. We are profoundly honored by their presence, and I would ask every single one of us, able-bodied here today, please now to be upstanding to honor these veterans appropriately. Thank you very much. As the mayor of the city of Cape Town, and as the grandson of a World War II veteran serviceman, Gwyn Hill Lewis, whose name I carry as my middle name, I'm extremely proud to be able to stand here at Cape Town's own cenotaph to honor the great men and women who died in World War I, World War II, and in all other wars in which the freedom and the security of the world was at stake. These men and women died in the defense of our ideals, and it is fitting that we honor their memory forever. But we must also think of what we can do today so that their sacrifice is not in vain. What can we do so that we never again have to witness the worst of human nature? It is a sad irony that as we are here today, remembering the horrors of war and all the people it took from us, that earlier this year, war broke out in Europe again with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Since then, we have heard the threat of escalation and even the explicit threat, the use of weapons too horrific to contemplate. Many thousands of people have already died, and many more have had their homes destroyed and lives torn apart. In my view, the memory of those we stand here today to remember should instill in us a profound sense of duty to stand up for what is right and just, and against that which is wrong. Even if those in South Africa who have responsibility to take this stand refuse to do so, here in the city of Cape Town, we will do so. We also keep in our minds all peoples everywhere living under conditions of conflict and war, and pray for peace and safety. Having spent the last few minutes speaking mostly about World War II, I would like to end this morning with an often recited poem from World War I, the armistice of which we recall this weekend. For me, the poppy that we wear is not just a symbol of what has been lost, but what still stands to be lost. It is a reminder that there are still many things in this world for which we have a duty to stand up and to protect. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. So take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high. And if ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. May we never forget their bravery, and may we never fail to stand up to bullies. Thank you.
Chaplain J.V. van der Ross from Naval Base Simonstown, and Chaplain Sheikh A. Abrams from South African Military Health Service will now lead us in scripture reading and prayer.
All protocol observed. Good morning and welcome to the Remembrance Memorial Service. Today we celebrate and commemorate the lives of our colleagues, our friends, our loved ones who made the ultimate sacrifice. We thank God for their courage and strength, not forgetting their families and loved ones, and we will remember them. We will now stand as the band will lead us in the chorus. You will find it on the program. Abide with me. be seated. This morning we will find our scripture in Acts 7. And here we find a man with the name Stephen, a man who was stoned to death, a man that made the ultimate sacrifice. Unapologetically, he stood for what he believed in. And as we look at this man who stood, so did our soldiers. They stood in boldness, they stood in courage, they stood in strength. And because of them, we are here to say thank you, and we celebrate their lives.
Our scripture this morning from the Muslim religion is from the Quran, chapter 2, verse 155. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَنَبَلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ أُولَئِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَلَوَاتٌ مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ وَرَحْمَةٌ وَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. And we will surely test you with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, and loss of lives and fruit. But glad tidings to the patient, who when disaster strikes them, then they say, indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him is our return.
We will now stand as the band will lead us with a hymn, I Vow Thee, My Country.
Be seated. Let us pray. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-mursaleen. Sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammadin وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم اغفر له وارحمه وعافه واعف عنه وأكرم نزله ووسع مدخله واغسلهم بالماء والثلج والبرد. O Allah, forgive our living and our deceased, those present and those absent, our young and our old, our males and our females. O Allah, whom amongst you kept alive today, let them live such a life upon faith. And whom amongst us you have taken to yourself, let then such a death be on faith. O Allah, cover our loved ones who have passed away in your mercy and forgiveness. O Allah, grant ease to the hearts of the families and friends who grieve the loss of the loved ones. O Allah, reunite them with their loved ones in eternal life.
Lord, we pray and we thank you for your grace. We thank you, dear God, for every soldier, for their bravery, for their courage, for their strength. Father, and even as they have given the ultimate sacrifice with their lives, I thank you for who they are and who they were. And I pray for their families, dear God. Always give your angels command concerning them and bless them, keep them. Father, I pray that you will make your face shine upon us, that you will give us peace, that you will bless us, and that you will be with us in all we do. I pray this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please stand for the call to remembrance. It is a matter of civic and national pride that the call to remembrance originated in Cape Town. Today we gather to remember those South Africans who've made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. We will remember them. Please remain standing for the sounding of the last post, gun salvo, the 2-minute silent, and the sounding of the reveille. Please be seated. The laying of the wreath will now take place. Will those laying the wreath step forward when called? City of Cape Town, the Executive Mayor, Alderman Jordan Hill Lewis. On behalf of the Director General, Department of Military Veterans, Mr. Michael Masala. Mr. Masala. On behalf of the Chief of the South African National Defence Force, Brigadier General O.M. Dube, Brigadier General Dube. On behalf of the Reserve Force Council, the Vice Chairman, Brigadier General John Dalmento. Brigadier General Dalmonte. On behalf of the people of France, the Consul General, Ms. Fort, Mrs. Fort. On behalf of the people of Federal Republic of Germany, Consul Philip Liesbrock. On behalf of the people of Great Britain and the Northern Ireland, the High Commissioner, Anthony Phillipson. On behalf of the people of Italy, the Consul, Mrs. Susan Adamfar. On behalf of the people of Portugal, the Consul General, Jorge de Sampaio. On behalf of the people of the Russian Federation, Consul Yevhen Kosenkov. In memory of Robert Nelson and his comrades of the 3 Transvaal Scottish Regiment who died at the Battle of Sidirizeg, Alderman Ian Nelson. In memory of her father, Cyril Slober, Witwatersrand de la Rey Rifles, and his brothers, Norman and Ernest, who all returned from World War II. His daughter, Meryl Lilly. On behalf of the City of Cape Town Metropolitan Police, Chief Wayne LaRue. On behalf of the Chief of the South African Air Force, Brigadier General MC Moate. On behalf of the Chief of the South African Army, Rear Admiral Junior Grade Joseph Dlamini. On behalf of the Chief of the South African Navy, Rear Admiral Junior Grade Joseph Dlamini. On behalf of the Sergeant General of the South African Military Health Service, Colonel Mdwabo. In memory of Rifleman Carlo Apollos of the British Rifles, who was killed in action in Afghanistan in 2010, High Commissioner Anthony Felton Philipsa. On behalf of the Council of Military Veteran Organization, Chaplain Vela Mabena. On behalf of the South African Legion Cape Town branch, Legionnaire Peter. This one. On behalf of the Memorial Order of Tin Hats, Cape Western Provincial Dugout, the Deputy Provincial Old Bill, Ricky Devet. On behalf of the Ghana's Association South Africa, the National Chairman, Ghana, Kevin Ashton. On behalf of the South African Air Force Association, the Chairman, Kevin Ashton. On behalf of the Naval Officers Association of South Africa, Captain John Lamont. On behalf of the Defence Reserve Support Board, Western Cape, the Chairman, Advocate Anthea Michaels. On behalf of the South African Cape Corps Ex-Servicemen Legion, the National President, Mr. Henry August. There's nothing. On behalf of the South African Indian Malay Corps, Legionnaire Jackson Human, 98 years old, the last survivor of the Malay Corps from World War II. On behalf of the Memorial Order of Tin Hats, Women's Auxiliary, the Provincial Lady Bill, Renee Rossi. On behalf of the Sandust Association for the South African War Blinded Veterans, Sergeant Mazibu Gontwana and Warrant Officer Class 1 Simpiwe Gwati. On behalf of the South African Special Forces Association, Warrant Officer Class 1, Smiley van der Merwe. On behalf of the 32 Battalion Veterans Association, Lieutenant Wouter Kuhn. On behalf of the Signals Association, Staff Sergeant Fachmeier Rode. On behalf of the British Parachute Regimental Association South Africa, Colonel Simon Berry. On behalf of the Rhodesian Light Infantry Regimental Association, Trooper Maurice Gabriel. Department of Defense School of Logistics, Colonel C.O. Daba. On behalf of the 9th South African Infantry Battalion, the Acting Officer Commanding, Major Carol Stringer. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a few minutes delay whilst we sort out our list. Thank you. On behalf of Nelson Mandela Artillery Regiment, Captain Victor Janssen. On behalf of Chief Langali Balele Rifles, Captain John Manning. On behalf of Ashimatu Anti-Aircraft Artillery Regiment, Warrant Officer Class 1, Jochi Janssen. On behalf of Western Cape Reserve Signal Unit, Major Herman Jacobs. On behalf of Nelson Mandela Regimental Association, Lieutenant Colonel Ian McKinney. On behalf of Cape Town Highlanders Regimental Association, Captain Will Carter. On behalf of the Dukes Regimental Association, the Chairman, Mr. Alan Brayshaw. On behalf of Transvaal Scottish Regiment Association, Western Cape Branch, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, Jean Finlay.
Unity are not here. Not unity. Just hold off on unity. Stand back.
On behalf of the 6th Light Anti-Aircraft Regimental Association, Colonel Colin Doyle. On behalf of the Regiment Westlake Provincial Veterans Association, Lieutenant Colonel General Gerald Posov. On behalf of Unity Association, Commander Robin Cross. On behalf of the Warrant Officers Association, Western Cape, Master Warrant Officer Carol Mini. On behalf of the South African Police Service Special Task Force, the President, Sergeant Chris Bierkes. On behalf of the South African Police Service Internal Stability Division 10, Cape Town, Sergeant Casper Rousseau. On behalf of the South African Police Service, Internal Stability Division 10, Disability Component, Warrant Officer First Class Scotty Prince. On behalf of the Koefoed Veterans League, Captain Pine Pienaar. On behalf of 6-1 Mechanized Infantry Battalion, Corporal JCM van Schalkwijk. The Delverwood Commemorative Trust, Rear Admiral Alan Green. On behalf of the Naval Heritage Trust, the Chairman, Mr. Mike Bosaza. On behalf of the training ship, General Boarder, All Boys Association, Mr. Dennis Hanwood. On behalf of the Sea Cadets, South Africa, Captain Paul Jacobs. On behalf of the training ship Voltemade, Petty Officer G. Play and Petty Officer A. Adams. On behalf of the Western Cape Archives and Record Services, Dr. Gustav Hendrich. On behalf of the Freemasons of South Africa, representing the South African, English, Irish, and Scottish Masonry, Brother Roger McCarthy, Lodge de Goede Trouws, number 2. On behalf of the Military and Hospital Order of St. Lazarus of Jerusalem, Chevalier Will Carter. On behalf of Cape Town Scottish Association, by their representatives. Mr. P. van Wyk. Mr. P. van Wyk is 99 years old.
Maybe who supported me.
In memory of Miss Murphy, who supported the Cape Corps soldiers of World War II, Miss Lillian Primer. In honor of his comrades who serve in the 6th Division in Italy, Trooper Walter Brewers, 97-year-old. On behalf of the South African Special Service Association, Warrant Officer Class 1, Smiley van der Merwe. Members of the public who would like to lay a flower in memory of those who have gone before, could we ask to step forward immediately, because all the troops have been standing for quite a while. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the wreath laying ceremony. Please stand for the reading of the Memorial Order of Tin Hats, Credo, and Prayer. Moth Derek Berry.
No little child, no little child will starve or suffer needless pain. The aged will live their twilight years in sunshine and not in rain. The crippled will help to walk. The blind will help to see. The wonders of God's handiwork in all its majesty. To feed, to clothe, to build again, where hopes should shattered be. This is the crowning moth ideal to help humanity. When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow we gave our today. Their gift was great, but you must give a greater to complete the plan. They died, now you must nobly live to make brother unto man. I shall pass through this world but once. Any good thing I can do, or kindness I can show any human being, let me do it now and not defer it, for I shall not pass this way again. Must salute! They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Drop salute.
Please remain standing for the sounding of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing. The Executive Mayor of Cape Town, Jordan Hill Lewis, will now depart. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and remain seated until the ceremonial guard, sentries, flag orderlies, and military veteran banners have marched off. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our beautiful parade. All guests are invited to join the Executive Mayor of Cape Town for refreshments at the Civic Center. Thank you for sharing the memorial service with us.
No, that's good. That's good. Vijana esikoleni ngibona ngathi unomkhulu laphana ngiyasapota support. Usapota nini manje sustainment. Usapota nini? Mina ngisapota ngezemfundo. Oche or no business, no operation, no business,
Ladies and gentlemen, change of venue for the refreshments. They're here at a truck immediately behind the marquee. Immediately behind the marquee, there's a little truck here on Adley Street. You can get your refreshments there. Thank you.
Yeah, for the parade. But unfortunately, the name was
I think the two of you can go with the mayor. I'll ask him now. Go with the Fortuna with the mayor.
Yes.